if you are struggling, it's not a sign of weakness, right? It's a sign of strength, so that they need to be vulnerable and be willing to raise their voice and ask for help.
If our day was full of that kind of meaningful work, we wouldn't need the word burnout. The quality of connection has so much to do with how we can do our work.
Every time a doctor shares their story, another doctor feels less alone. And that's why I have so many different doctors on my YouTube channel talk about so many different things to get everyone's message out there so doctors don't feel like they're alone.
You're listening to Solving for Joy. I'm your host, Dr. Chrissy Ott. Hello, friends, and welcome to today's episode of the Solving for Joy podcast. I'm your host, Chrissy Ott, and today I have the distinct pleasure of introducing you to my new friend, Kim Downey. Kim is a physical therapist, a 3-time cancer survivor, parentheses, thyroid and breast, for those of you who have a mind like mine, can't stop wondering about details. Kim did not set out to become LinkedIn famous, but I'm going to tell you, as a side note, she is kind of a big deal in the world of LinkedIn. She is a well-being activist who founded Stand Up for Doctors, and she did this after losing an absolutely wonderful, irreplaceable radiologist on her cancer team to suicide. She became activated and radicalized after coming in contact with our common friend, Dr. Michael Hirsch, who is also a physician coach and has benefited firsthand from what coaching can offer. I think that Kim probably never realized she was going to be a public figure hosting a YouTube channel, making the rounds, and being a frequent guest on the Kevin MD podcast and platform. But here we are. Just before I hit record, I was saying to Kim, it's like you really can't even find somebody that Kim's not already connected to on LinkedIn. And 2 years ago, she had like no LinkedIn presence at all. I am really in awe of this phenomenon, and it speaks to how much can happen when your passion and purpose are lit aflame. I just want to start by thanking you, Kim Downey, for answering the call in your heart. It's obvious that it's a passion for you, and I'm so delighted to have you here.
Thank you very much for that kind and warm introduction, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Um, our podcast, as you know, is about solving for joy. It is about the adaptive, maladaptive, expected, and unexpected ways that we seek an experience of meaning, alignment, and delight, which is my favorite shorthand understanding for joy. So I'm excited to hear about what role meaning, alignment, and delight, aka joy, have been playing in your activities as an advocate and activist for well-being in healthcare.
Well, that's an interesting question, and it hasn't been easy. I was the presenter at the American College of Physicians Virtual Doctors Lounge a week ago Thursday, and one of the physicians asked me because if you know a little of my story, having cancer 3 times and losing one of my doctors during the pandemic and having a medical complication, for a couple years, I wasn't doing so well. I was
Yeah.
struggling with some things, but through doing a lot of things, we have a local cancer support center and place, and I participated in everything from midweek mindfulness to art to even some piano lessons to some writing. So all of those things help, and part of a women's fellowship group through my church. And during the pandemic, that never stopped. And just to have that support and with family and friends. And I tend to be resilient. So it just took me a little longer to come back this time. But once I came back, I do just look for the joy and find it. And the gratitude from physicians keeps me going every day.
I love that. you look for the joy and find it. It's like we find what we look for. And you are new to me, Kim, at least in person, but I can sense through just images of you that your energy points to a human with an indomitable spirit. So, well done. Well done on
Thank
that.
you.
Um, I am not, thankfully, a cancer survivor at this time in my life, but my wife is. We had an experience with ovarian cancer diagnosed in 2022. Thankfully, she is more than 2 years out from chemo now and no evidence of disease. So we're extremely grateful. But I think that sometimes just knowing that somebody has been in or close to that seat or experience, it sort of cements and grounds our common experience together. I've also been working in wellness since medical school. I actually founded my first well-being group in med school. My second one was Poetry Heals in residency. And then I went through the all of the hoops of being an early career physician and wound up here 20 years later as a physician coach and well-being leader. So we have a lot of overlap in what we care about and are passionate about. So thank you for doing that work.
You're welcome. And during the time that I had my cancers, actually, three of my good friends died of cancer, and two had the cancers that I had. One had thyroid cancer, one had breast cancer, and the other one had ovarian cancer.
Mm,
So I'm also feel like I have to, make my life worth it, right? And move
yeah,
forward, with
yeah,
joy, for my friends that aren't here to be able to do that.
yeah. There's a lot of utility in seeing our life with that extra infusion of purpose when we have seen the possibility of losing our time on this planet. I'm so grateful you're doing well, and I'm sorry that you lost your friends. It sounds like you used all the tools. You used a lot of tools to get through that hard spot. Um, how did coaching play into that for you when you connected with Michael Hirsch? What was that like for you?
Well, he was my initial introduction to everything because I was just a typical Facebook user like anybody
Mhm.
else. And it was the spring of 2022 where his blog, Better Physician Life, showed up on my Facebook feed. And we'll never know why. He had been blogging for 4 months. He's in Chicago, I'm in Connecticut. We had nothing in common. And the other reason is I have no idea why I clicked on it. It had nothing to do with me or what I was doing. So in retrospect, I'm guessing maybe it showed up a few times because I just don't think that I would have clicked on it. But also, why would it have showed up a few times? But I did, and his writing just resonated with me. And he linked a music video, and he nailed it. And so I went back and read every blog post. He had been blogging for 4 months, and I noticed that he dropped them on Wednesdays. So every Wednesday was like a little treat. I would like go to his website and I would read his blog posts. So it was my doctor died that September. I found out in October, and then in December, he shared a blog that he was celebrating his year of blogging. So again, totally randomly, I've never done anything like this, but I just sent him a private Facebook message. I just said, "Congratulations on your year of blogging. Your posts have really resonated with me." And then he sent me like a really nice message back. And then we just started communicating, and I was really struggling with the death of my doctor. So after a few days of us communicating, I said, "Could I tell you about him?" Like I thought I knew he was coaching physicians. I didn't really know what that entailed, but I'm like, "Could I pay you for a session?" Because I didn't know what to do to feel better. And he's like, he says, "I'd love to talk to you. The first, one is no charge." So it was New Year's Eve morning of 2022. We had a Zoom call, and I told him the whole story, and then we just kept chatting. And then after that Zoom call, we just kept communicating. And then he did start coaching me in January. We did it weekly for 12 weeks, and he helped me process and accept a lot of things. And that was how I moved forward. And then it was him that connected me on LinkedIn because I was trying to find a way to help my local doctors in our healthcare system. And I thought maybe if I talked to other doctors they'd have some ideas. So I said, is LinkedIn, is it worth it to go on LinkedIn? Because I had less than 150 connections. None were doctors. And my kids had set me up the page like 10, 12 years ago. And I never, ever, ever went on it. So he said, yeah, I think he was fairly new to it. And then I didn't even know how to make a connection. So I asked him, he's like, you click on the three dots, and he's like, oh, I'll just send you a request. So yeah, and then now I have like over 12,000 followers, and it's just about all doctors. So
12,000?
yeah, I think just this weekend, I think I hit like 12,000.
Wow, Kim. Wow. Um, I love that so much. I mean, I'm in awe right now that there's just like a little bit of magic in the algorithm. Like your life changed and then you became a Lorna Breen heroes ambassador. And then you founded Stand Up for Doctors. So there's this massive cascading ripple of change that happened all because of this tiny little sliding doors moment where you clicked on something that the algorithm served you. I'm in awe of that. We are here today talking because of that. And I mean, I'm not one to worship the algorithm, guys, but I'm just still like, maybe there's a little divine intervention there. Maybe it was just like that was the tool because you were meant to be connected and sparked by Michael Hirsch. Yeah?
Yeah, well, that's why it had to be God or the universe throwing me a bone because I was really struggling. And, yeah, and it's just been incredible. And then, we found ways to support each other. And then, so my early connections, because he had just started his podcast, Doctors Living Deliberately. So then I would watch every single episode and then I would reach out. Again, at first it was on Facebook
Mhm.
because I wasn't on LinkedIn yet. And I would tell his guests how much I appreciated their episodes. So then when I got on LinkedIn, those were some of my first connections because I recognized the names.
Wow, that's
So,
amazing. It also really speaks to me, Kim, because a lot of the people who come to me for coaching are suffering and are at a turning point or they sense like I'm not sure how to feel better. I have a sense of a vision on the other side of this thing. What are the steps to feel better? What are the steps for me to get in touch with this this thing that I sense wants to come through me. I think that this work is coming through you more than from you. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely would because again, I didn't plan on doing any of this. I was working as a pediatric physical therapist, helping little kids learn how to do sit-ups and hop on one foot.
Yes.
And I did leave amidst my health challenges and I was going to spend that winter, that December, because I left on November 30th, 2021, and I was gonna just enjoy the holidays because I didn't know that I was about to discover, I had the first breast cancer, then I had another breast cancer. So I never really had a chance to figure out what I was going to do or what was going to be the next step. And then things just started happening.
Those moments are like moments of pluripotentiality. Like a stem cell is pluripotent. It means that it has multiple paths ahead of it. And we're actually always pluripotent, in my opinion. We sort of forget that we always have some stem cell potential within
Mhm.
us, but we can make a different choice in any domain of our life, any day of the week, and completely change our trajectory forever. Not to mention the trajectories of those around us and those whose lives we touched. So I will just iterate again what I said earlier. Thank you, Kim, for answering the call because it just is such an obvious, um, it's an obvious calling for you.
That's what I felt like after my doctor died. I don't know how else to describe it. Then I felt a calling to support doctors, and I have his memorial card on my bulletin board above my desk, and above that,
Hmm.
I have a post-it note that says I'm meant to support them. So when it gets hard and challenging, I just look up and always remember my why.
I think of it as such a example of post-traumatic growth also. I mean, if you had not had the complex trauma, you would not be having this complex joy experience.
That's true, and that's in the well, I've read The Body Keeps the Score, and, I've learned a lot from that, and also there's another book that I can't think of the name right now that I've referenced a lot that speaks to that post-traumatic growth, and I would agree.
Yeah. It's like, tragedy plus time equals comedy, but tragedy plus time plus resources equals post-traumatic growth or
Mhm,
transformation.
mhm, right.
It's wonderful to see and to highlight it and get to platform it even just a little bit from this standpoint. I have heard you talk in Stand Up for Doctors about the need for docs to raise their voices. And even though we're saying docs, you and I both know that we have an inclusive view, and this extends to all of our healthcare friends, our allied health professionals, our PAs, our NPs, our nurses, our CNAs. We are all one big family in distress in this time, especially in the US healthcare system. One of the containers in JoyPoint Solutions is ROAR. It's this container just for physicians. And the acronym is Reclaim Our Brains. So, a lot of mindset work. Own our power, figure out where we actually have power, access our joy, and raise our voices and vibrations. And I hear Stand Up for Doctors in that fourth part of the acronym. So I would love to hear, like, what is your best practice message for, your workaday physician who's trying to get through right now? What do you think is the most effective way for somebody to think about raising their voice?
Well, there's lots of things they can do, individually and collectively. And sometimes it's even, raising your voice just where you work to support your colleagues in a way that is safe. That's one thing that you could do. And then also, physicians can write whatever they're comfortable, right? Of using your voice doesn't have to mean vocally, it can also mean through writing and Kevin MD is, one great platform for that, and also SoMe if everyone's familiar with that.
Yes, Dana Coriel.
And
Mhm.
yes, that, and I've had them both on my YouTube channel as well. So you'll have to be on. We'll have to reciprocate here. I'll put you on my list.
Thank you.
And also, and then, and, and Stand Up for Doctors, that is, well, why I said why I have the YouTube channel is I say, so I'm actually soon going to interview Dr. Kathy Stepien, and who she shared with me in a private LinkedIn message that everyone wins when physicians are well. And
That's
that's
right.
practically become my mantra because that means so much. And that's why patients need to care because, right, if you have a doctor who's burnt out and not doing well, they're not in a position to give you the best care. So we all need to care. So I'd say the doctors that are doing well, it's great to hear stories from doctors who are thriving and to find out what's working for them. So that if they can share those messages in podcasts and articles and with their peers, and then
Yes.
also, if you are struggling, there's so many doctors who have, and it's not a sign of weakness, right? It's a sign of strength so that they need to be vulnerable and be willing to raise their voice and ask for help.
Yes, so much yes. I was part of a book called Thriving After Burnout. At the end of 2023, you probably know some of our friends.
I do. I have it.
One of my burnout stories, or part of my burnout stories in that book as well. And that is such a wonderful example of physicians coming together collectively to tell their stories and share them. Now it's about like getting those stories in people's hands or finding the time for them to hear them or read them, which is why I love podcast format because we can share stories in shorter, lower commitment bubbles of time. And sometimes that's all we really have. I was speaking to a beloved physician client just this morning who realized that he was experiencing moral injury.
Mhm.
And he actually, like, it was a stop, drop, and roll moment for him. And he canceled some shifts, but is now facing, like a really devastating sense of guilt and uncertainty and worry, um, because it wasn't a true illness. I'm using quotey fingers for those of you who aren't seeing me. Um, and I just want to validate that what you are working on, what you are just now describing is alive and well in real people, high functioning, highly successful, highly trained individuals all of the time. This person is not comfortable being complicit with the intolerable barriers to care that the system presents to patients. And the traumatized patient is unkind sometimes to the traumatized caregiver, who is unkind, uncareful sometimes with the traumatized patient. And this, vicious cycle is born where trust is eroded and the care is taken away from healthcare. Just so sad. But I love that you are pointing to some of the actual actions that people can take, including writing articles, telling their stories, and uniting with other people who are doing the same.
The people I know with Donna Coriel and I think Kevin MD as well, people can submit things anonymously if they're not comfortable sharing their name.
If you know the detailed information, and we can put this in the show notes, Kim,
Hmm.
but what's the best way to submit an article, either, pinned or anonymous, to Kevin MD or to
Oh, it's
so
really
many
easy.
docs?
So if you go to his website at the top of the page, there would be a toolbar. And when you click on it, it just says like it's like opinion at Kevin. It tells you how. There's something that tells you how, like reach out or if you want to submit an article. And then it's just like opinion at Kevin MD or something like that.
Amazing. Okay, friends, hear that. And if it calls to you to take action, let's do it.
Yep.
Let's do
And
it
Donna
together.
Coriel, the Domi Docs website, you can go on there and there's links, I believe, to reach out to write something there as well.
Amazing. Um, I've worked in organizational well-being leadership for my institution, and I've trained as a chief wellness officer with Stanford. So we can talk about, you know, solutions, and we can talk about ROI, we can talk about organizational values. Um, I'm curious if you are seeing a trend from your perspective as an advocate and activist about what people are reporting moves the needle most for the suffering and oppression of physicians and clinicians in these oppressive and somewhat extractive healthcare systems.
So right now, it seems to be raising your voice because before the pandemic, these issues weren't as widely talked about and everyone was suffering in silence and everyone felt siloed, and the pandemic really did seem to break it open. So I say so many times, every time a doctor shares their story, another doctor feels less alone. And that's why I have so many different doctors on my YouTube channel talk about so many different things, and then we collaborate on so many different articles to get everyone's message out there so doctors don't feel like they're alone. So I think that is really important. And actually right now, so in the fall, part of Medicine Forward, we did an open space event prior to the burnout symposium in New York City. And we called the question, how do we restore and nurture the human connection that's so needed in healthcare today? And for anyone not familiar with open space technology, the people that show up decide what the workshop is going to be. So they want to whatever they want to speak to, they raise their hand and we put post-it notes up, or that was the old fashioned way. Now it's the smart board, right? And then people got in groups to discuss those things. So one doctor raised his hand and he said, we are expected to, when we do, have so much empathy for patients. Sometimes they don't know the struggles we face. How can we foster empathy and patience for us? So, again, that's a lot of what I'm trying to do and what my work is about. So we had a follow-up Zoom on December 16th, in coordination with the Healthcare Reinvention Collaborative, and I facilitated that breakout room. And there were about a dozen people there, and they all wanted to keep going. And we talked about what could we do, what should we do. So we took off with that, and we decided to make a big impact for Doctors Day, which is the Sunday, March 30th. And we wanted to have a big card writing campaign. We wanted everyone to thank a doctor, and so that's one way. And actually, we said, even if you are a doctor, so there's one doctor who works with people with Down syndrome, and he is writing thank yous to his residents and his faculty. So they are getting some of them are getting a thank you note from a supervisor. And we said, imagine how a doctor would feel getting a note from another doctor, how they impacted their life, whether it was one of your friends back from residency or a colleague now that, stepped up or acknowledged you in some way. So now that that event, we've been sending a lot of thank you notes and spreading the word for that, is in April. We are going to have a few sessions where we talk about our mission, vision, and values and figure out what we're going to do moving forward to move the needle most. And people might be interested in doing different things, and they can work on what they want to work on most. Like, we might decide, well, we want to have a national march of patients and physicians. So if that calls to you, you can be in that group. If you want to work on, restoring physician autonomy, what can we do that we don't have to wait for insurance companies? Because there are little things that individual physicians are finding and ways to protect, their autonomy, and so they can share that with other doctors. So there's lots of things. So I think the biggest ways maybe we're going to move the needle might yet to be determined.
Awesome. I love that you're doing that for Doctor's Day. I'm going to confess to a little secret. I have some innate cynicism about Doctor's Day, born out of working in hospitals and institutions where it was totally lip service day. For me, it was the
Mhm,
Valentine's Day of, professional recognition. And that's because I don't have super lovely feelings about Valentine's Day. I think it's sort of
mhm,
performative. Anyway,
mhm,
sidebar. Um, I think that if it were renamed Thank a Doctor Day, it actually would be a little bit more meaningful. And
mhm,
administrations rightly need to do something. Of course they do. But anybody working frontline medicine will tell you pizza is not, pizza is
mhm,
missing the mark, friends. Not that we don't
mhm,
appreciate food, but
mhm,
that's just not going to it's not going to move the needle. Um,
mhm,
However, when a patient or a patient's family spontaneously pens and shares a note of recognition and how they were touched, that is like rocket fuel. That is the wind beneath our wings. That reminds us why we're here, why we work night shifts, why we do, 30 plus hours in a row sometimes, especially in training. That's what you will find in my keepsake folder in my file cabinet
mhm,
are the many, many, many touching notes all the way back to residency when a human connection was formed, when a heart was touched, when the facts that I memorized in medical school came alive and served somebody for the greater good. Like those are holy moments. Those are sacred connections. And if our day was full of that kind of meaningful work, we wouldn't need the word burnout. We really wouldn't. I mean, yes, of course, we can still drown in good deeds, but the quality of connection has so much to do with how we can do our work.
Absolutely. Doctors have shared that a thank you can change from a patient can change the trajectory of their entire day. And the last time I talked to my doctor, I was at the beach, and he called me to thank me for my thank you note.
You can know for sure that that buoyed him, that that
Mm,
helped him, even even in the pain that eventually ended his life. I feel like I can speak that truth without without a right to. I know that it helped him. I know that it mattered. Thank you for being a patient who could see their doctor as a human being. And thank you for being the kind of voice in the world that is asking other people to please see their physicians as human beings so that the physicians can see everyone else as human beings back. It is a healing cycle instead of a vicious cycle. I wrote a TEDx talk a couple years ago. I actually haven't performed it, but it was really overlapping with this message. Like there are things that people can do, and we will all be patients at some point. Every single one of us will be at the mercy of physicians, and we need them to be well.
Yeah, exactly. And that there's things that doctors and patients can do and, be kind, right, to each other and show respect for each other.
Yes,
And there is a power. One physician was talking with me and saying that there is a power differential. And in some way, the physician has a responsibility to show that they're human and let little pieces of themselves show. And, don't hold on to that armor so tightly that you're taught to wear as
absolutely.
physicians. And then when the
100%.
patients see, if you allow them to see a little of your humanity, then they can, reciprocate back and see you as humans and have more empathy.
I could not agree more. I mean, um, I'm blanking on the Dr. Clown's name right now that Robin Williams played in that movie.
Oh, yeah, yeah, right. All of a
Patch
sudden, I'm having a brain
Adams.
freeze. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
Patch
Patch Adams.
Adams. Yes, yes, we all need just a little skosh of Patch Adams in us. Not that we need to be clowns. I know that
Mhm.
most of my neurosurgeon friends are not feeling very clowny, and that's okay. But it is okay to bring your full humanity into the room. It is okay to find somewhere on the spectrum between Patch Adams and robot. Like err on the side of Patch Adams just a little bit. I'll tell you a super funny secret story. I don't think I've ever told this in public before, Kim, but when I was a
Okay.
resident leading my team at the Houston VA Medical Center, which is this mammoth federal building, smaller only than the Pentagon. Literally, it's a ginormous hospital. But we took care of vets, a whole lot of doing the impossible every day is what goes on at any VA hospital. And it's largely run by trainees, and they are working their tails off every day and learning a ton from these wonderful veterans, men and women. So, some of my very, very most valuable formative early training memories are at the VA hospital. There's this one vet. Of course, he was there with COPD. He had lung disease. He needed BiPAP on. He needed some oxygen, and he just kept pulling it off. He wasn't delirious. He was just ornery. And I made a bargain with him that I would stand on my head if he kept his mask on. And he looked at me like I was insane because I was a little bit insane, just from sleep deprivation and also
Right.
probably still being in my late 20s. Um, anyway, I stood on my head in the hospital room
Wow.
as part of my negotiation with this patient to keep his mask on. And we all had a fantastic laugh. And
Mhm.
I'm not saying it fixed it forever, but it
Huh.
sure brought some unexpected levity to the situation instead of just another lecture about why he needed to keep it on. He
Mhm.
got to have a laugh. We got to kind of play with the power differential. And I think everybody had a better day because of it. I was a second year resident then, so I was also modeling crazy, the good kind of crazy, with my interns and be like, yeah, you can do unscripted things, my friends. You can do things that seem ridiculous and sometimes they're effective, and you are actually going to create a stronger therapeutic bond with your patient than if you just stood there stiffly using big words and carrying a clipboard.
I We used to dress up for Halloween with our team. Once I was Snow White and my staff was the Seven Dwarfs and things like that. So we used to have a lot. And then one day one year my friend lent me her and her husband had gone around as M&Ms, but it was like this, they had the blanket filling in there. So I was like so cozy. I just wanted to take a nap. So that costume was probably a mistake for the day.
That's funny. I think that connecting with our creative wisdom is a big part of returning to joy and solving for joy. And when I use the word creative along with the word wisdom, some people are thinking, what does this mean? Does this mean you're saying I should be a painter? No, it doesn't. But I am saying that there is a path back to um, some kind of creative impulse within. And it might be, you know, an ambition to lead a group. It might be that is your creative impulse. It might be a, an impulse to write a book, a memoir. It might be an impulse, even if as a physician, to write maybe it's a fiction story that occurs in the setting of a hospital that like the back of your hand, and you can describe in detail what the sound of a gurney moving through the hallways is. Like maybe there's just something inside each of us that needs the match to be struck against the box a little bit. And I think that releasing instead of suppressing our creative impulses has something to do with discovering unbounded joy and surprisingly delightful paths forward. What do you see with creativity in your work advocating for doctors, Kim?
Well, what immediately comes to mind is that you might not be familiar with Amber Pennaposey. She's a nurse
I
practitioner. Oh, you are?
Probably because we are commonly linked with you, girl.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe that's it. So, actually, so I had her on with Sheeta
Oh,
Chapmy, Dr.
okay.
Sheeta Chapmy. So I
Uh-huh.
had them on together, and then Amber sent me this exercise to do. And some people might have said it was a little woo, but I'm open to woo now, right? So I was doing it, and then you were supposed to whatever like she had you do or write down or think about. Then you were supposed to do something in 3 days, whether like dance or do some kind of art. And at first, I'm like, I'm not going to be able to think of anything. But I thought of, okay, well, what do I love to do? And I was like, oh, like I love to walk on the beach and I love to talk to doctors. So like I cut out a heart and then I collect sea glass. So when my doctor died, like I told you, I was at the beach. So I go back there. I like to walk and think, and I pick up pieces of sea glass. So I was inspired to make a sea glass heart. So then I started sending these to my doctors, and then that ended up being the basis for my Stand Up for Doctors logo, which is it's hard to tell that it's a patient giving a doctor a hand, like that's the cuff sleeve, and then in the back is the mosaic heart. So that became my logo.
That is so sweet. Yes. I love that. And I love that we have Amber Penna Posey in common too.
Shout out to Amber and Sheeta
That's so fun. And Michael and
and
Aaron.
Michael. Yeah, and right, and Aaron, everybody.
We could just keep naming them down the line. Um, that is a really beautiful, beautiful gesture.
Oh, and also Charity Hicks. She's the one that helped me because I had a vision, but I'm not very good with technology. So it was Dr. Charity Hicks offered. She says, I help you, I'll help you. And she went on Canva. So she's the one that actually brought it to life. So I have to give Charity a shout out as well.
Amazing. You were mentioning the woo. I'm gonna say my definition of woo, as far as I know, I coined this, is I've turned it into an acronym, and it is wildly open to outcomes. So I have found a very clear way to embrace the woo, and I make that available to anybody who would like to embrace the woo without feeling that they have lost their frontal filter. It's actually just wildly open to outcomes. Um, I am so grateful for these themes about healing and connection and joy, physician well-being, clinician well-being. So grateful that you have stepped out of your comfort zone and have been connected to so many amazing people. I know that you are a super connector and you are going to keep connecting and doing this work, hopefully for many, many years on. How can people best connect with you, Kim?
Well, I'm always on LinkedIn, so you can find me on LinkedIn. And my YouTube channel is Stand Up for Doctors, and I also have a monthly Substack newsletter of the same name.
That is wonderful. And any last takeaways for clinicians who are running a little short on their connection to joy right now?
I just say reach out, right? Just tell somebody, talk to whether it's, a friend, a colleague, a pastor, a coach, anyone. Just say, I'm feeling a little low. Or just share a little bit of yourself, and then other people might feel comfortable sharing a little bit with you, and then you'll feel less alone and you can support each other.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being with us, Kim.
You're welcome. Thanks again. I enjoyed our conversation.
We will talk again soon. Kim Downey, everyone. Resilient, wholehearted, and one of the fiercest advocates for clinician well-being out there. If today's conversation reminded you that healing can begin with a sea glass heart, a single story, or a thank you note, you're not alone. Kim shows us that post-traumatic growth isn't just possible, it's powerful. Her journey reminds us that when we name our pain, connect with others, and keep showing up with love, we create ripples that can reshape the system. And next week, we're shifting our focus to another kind of healing, this time from the inside out. Dr. Annie Chandra Oshner is a clinical neuropsychologist and the medical director of Joy at Mayo Clinic. She leads the Habit program, helping people with mild cognitive impairment find tools for resilience and independence. And we will explore how joy plays a role even in the work of supporting those with neurodegenerative conditions, and also what we can do to connect with moments of joy at work. And a quick note to my fellow physician coaching friends, if the Physician Coaching Summit is on your radar, now is the time to register. We have an incredible speaker lineup coming your way and a limited block of deeply discounted rooms at Savannah Wellness Resort and Spa, which is an incredible facility. Lock in your best pricing and secure your spot now at thephysiciancoachingsummit.com. We cannot wait to see you there. And as always, I am a physician, but not your physician. And the stories here are meant to spark reflection, not replace professional care. If something stirred in you today and you're feeling the pull to raise your voice, reconnect to purpose, or simply rest for a moment, coaching can be a powerful mirror and companion on that path. Learn more at joypointsolutions.com or check out the links in the show notes. Huge thanks, as always, to our behind-the-scenes dream team, produced by Kelsey Vaughn, post-production by Alyssa Wilkes, operations Denise Crane, theme music by Dennis Kishcook, cover photography by Shelby Bracken, and as always, a warm thank you to my sweet wife, Sue Sanchez, my #1 fan and champion. Thanks, everybody, for being here, for listening. Keep choosing your wholeness, telling the truth, even if your voice shakes. And may we all keep solving for joy. We'll see you next time.